In the news tonight, His Majesty the King receives a U.S. congressional delegation on a visit to the kingdom and discusses with them the situation in the region and the challenge of confronting terrorist groups. Syria's United Nations envoy Staffan de Mistura meets Russian foreign minister in Moscow to discuss a truce in Aleppo and announces a ceasefire may come to effect in the city within hours. And Leicester City's Premier League title dream became a reality when one of the greatest sporting fairy tales reached its conclusion, where chasing Tottenham Hotspur were held to a draw by Chelsea. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. Their Majesties King Abdullah and Queen Rania will pay a state visit to Belgium later this month, invited by King Felipe and Queen Matilda. His Majesty will hold talks with King Felipe as well as with Prime Minister Charles Michel and other senior officials. The visit during the 17th and 19th of this month will cover the capital Brussels and other Belgian cities and will serve to boost the historic ties between the two countries. His Majesty received at Al Husseiniya Palace a U.S. congressional delegation led by Representative Michael Conaway and discussed with them Jordanian-U.S. ties as well as the situation in the region. The meeting focused on challenges confronting Arab states, primarily the threat of terror and extremism. While King Abdullah voiced appreciation of U.S. support to the kingdom in different fields, the delegation valued Jordan's key and moderate role vis-à-vis regional crises. Present at the meeting were His Royal Highness Crown Prince Hussein, royal court officials, as well as a U.S. ambassador to Jordan. King Abdullah and Saudi Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud spoke by telephone to follow up on the establishment of a Saudi-Jordanian Coordination Council. An agreement to form the council was signed in Riyadh during His Majesty's visit to Saudi Arabia last week. It aims to develop and strengthen the strategic relations between the two kingdoms in various fields. As international and local efforts are being exerted to shore up the cessation of hostilities agreement and to implement calm in Aleppo, Syria's rebels bombarded government-held areas of the city with rockets, while also launching a ground assault on army-held positions. 19 people were killed and a hospital was hit and heavily damaged. The Syrian army said insurgents launched a widespread assault and that it was responding. Syrian news channel Ikhbariya said 3 women were killed and 17 more people were wounded at Al-Dabit maternity clinic. The UN Security Council has called on the warring sides in Syria to protect medical facilities, describing today's attack on the maternity clinic and another on an Aleppo hospital a week ago as war crimes. The Council urged all parties to abide by international laws and respect medical and humanitarian staff during conflicts. The United Nations mediator on Syria, Staffan de Mistura, said peace talks on the conflict could be resumed if a faltering truce was extended to the city of Aleppo. De Mistura was speaking at a news conference that followed talks in Moscow with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who said the truce could be announced within hours. Lavrov appealed to the United States and other partners in the Syria support group to use their influence over members of the U.S.-led coalition to stop ultimatums targeted at ruining the talks. Reports of insurgent rockets hitting a hospital in a government-held part of the city, killing and injuring dozens, underlined the challenge diplomacy is facing in Syria.
If, as we all hope, there will be some type of confirmation that even Aleppo will be returning into a cessation of hostility status, then what could imagine all of us is that meanwhile we will be restarting and pushing also for the humanitarian access and for the intra-Syrian talks. Everything is connected. Nothing is a condition, but everything is connected.
Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte, on a one-day visit to Lebanon, announced 80 million euros in aid to the country until the end of 2017 to help the Lebanese government cope with Syrian refugees. Accompanied by his foreign trade minister, Rutte visited an informal Syrian refugee camp in Lebanon, where he said his country is offering support to the UNHCR to improve the living conditions of Syrians. He earlier met Lebanese Prime Minister Tamam Salam and signed a memorandum of understanding for a better economic cooperation between Lebanon and the Netherlands.
We are deeply touched by what we saw here in this settlement, the good work being done by UNHCR and the impressive situation and how people are living here, and the fact that Lebanon is doing its best to host so many people in this country, over 1 million. It might even be 1.5 million people who are fleeing from bombs and very dangerous situations inside Syria, and they all hope to get back into Syria. They all hope to get back. And what we are doing is helping here with money and supporting UNHCR to improve living conditions, but also we hope that we can collectively work on the situation in Syria so that people can go back.
Meanwhile, 101 Syrian and Iraqi refugees who have been living in a camp in Beirut arrived in Italy to start a new life. The refugees have qualified to be part of a humanitarian corridor project organized by a Catholic charity group, Sant'Egidio. The project works alongside government authorities and aims to house 1,000 Syrian refugees in 2 years. The charity's founder, Andrea Riccardi, said as she welcomed the refugees that Europe cannot be a frightened fortress and has a responsibility to the world. Sant'Egidio recently brought over 12 Syrian refugees on the return flight to Pope Francis following his day visit to the island of Lesbos in Greece. Another 97 refugees are expected to make the journey in February 2017. And here at home, the border guard ushered in a new group of Syrian refugees during the past 24 hours. An additional 289 Syrians, including men and women of varying age groups, were escorted to camps after being offered the necessary relief aid as well as medical attention by Army and Royal Medical Services personnel. Daesh terrorists killed a U.S. Navy SEAL in northern Iraq after blasting through Kurdish defenses and overrunning a town in the biggest offensive in the area for a month. A senior official within the Kurdish Peshmerga forces facing Daesh in northern Iraq said the man was killed near the town of Tel Asqaf, around 28 kilometers from Daesh's stronghold of Mosul. Here's more.
Daesh fighters killed a member of the U.S. Armed Forces in northern Iraq when they pushed through a forward line of Iraqi Kurdish forces. He is the third American killed in direct combat since the U.S.-led coalition launched a campaign against the terrorist group in 2014. During a trip to Germany, U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter said it is a combat death, of course, and a very sad loss, adding that he doesn't know all the circumstances of it. A U.S. military official said the U.S.-led coalition helped the Peshmerga repel an attack by providing air support from F-15 jets and drones. Carter's spokesman, Peter Cook, said the incident took place during a Daesh attack on a Peshmerga position some 3 to 5 kilometers behind the Iraqi Kurdish fighters' forward line. In mid-April, the United States announced plans to send an additional 200 troops to Iraq and put them closer to the front lines of battle to advise Iraqi forces in the war against Daesh. Farah Ajrouni for the news at 10.
In the race to the White House, Indiana voters headed to the polls today to cast their ballots in the state's primary election. Democratic front-runner Hillary Clinton, as well as Republican leader Donald Trump, hope wins in Indiana will cement their claim for their respective parties' nomination. Clinton has increased him within reach of the 1,237 delegates required to lock up the Republican presidential nomination before the convention. British luxury brand Jaguar accomplished a historic world first for its Middle East launch of the all-new F-Pace performance SUV. Jaguar unveiled the F-Pace, the brand's first SUV in Dubai, during a show on the facade of the city's iconic landmark, Burj Khalifa. Burj Khalifa was lit up with 70,000 LED bulbs in a light and music show, highlighting the Jaguar brand as 3 F-Pace SUVs were revealed to the gathered crowd. The spectacle culminated in the dramatic reveal of the Jaguar F-Pace, elevated almost 6 meters off ground level. The all-new Jaguar F-Pace is a dynamic 5-seat performance crossover, offering a combination of Jaguar sports car-inspired exterior design fused with a practical and spacious luxury interior. The vehicle was designed, engineered and manufactured in the UK. The Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York is attempting to debunk the negative association of machine-made fashion with its exhibition dubbed Menus Ex Machina, Fashion in an Age of Technology. Through 170 examples of garments from Chanel to Alexander McQueen, the show looks at how designers are trying to reconcile their handmade works with the machine in the design practice. Over the past few years, handcrafted items have become synonymous with luxury, superiority and individuality, while machine-made creations are seen as something inferior in its mass production. But sometimes it takes much longer and much more time to construct a garment by machine than by hand, according to the Institute. A case in point is the opening piece of the new exhibition, a wedding ensemble by Karl Lagerfeld for Chanel that features a mix of hand and machine construction. The opening night celebration, known as the Met Ball, is considered the Super Bowl of fashion and is attended by numerous A-list celebrities. The exhibit will run from the 5th till August 14th.
It's a perfect case study that shows the sort of a designer who uses both the hand and the machine for a particular intention. So the dress is actually made from scuba knit, so totally synthetic fabric with very, very few seams. But the train is actually an amalgamation of both hand and machine. So initially it was sketched by hand, by Karl's own hand, transferred to a computer to give a sort of pixelated, sort of Baroque pattern. And then the rhinestones were initially heat transferred, so machine transferred onto the train, finished by hand painting and hand embroideries.
Leicester City, 5,000-1 outsiders at the start of the Premier League season, are champions for the first time and the first team to win a maiden English title since Nottingham Forest in 1978. Leicester's title dream finally became a reality as nearest pursuers Tottenham Hotspur squandered a 2-goal lead to draw 2-2 in a thrilling game at Chelsea last night. The result provoked an outpouring of celebration in the provincial English city as the city's biggest party began in earnest. And in Rome, outside AS Roma Sporting Club, a big banner read "Champions of England," as a Rome neighborhood where Leicester coach Claudio Ranieri grew up celebrated his victory. With 2 games left, Leicester are 7 points ahead of second-place Tottenham, and next week's home match against Everton will include a glorious lap of honour. The Olympic torch arrived in the Brazilian capital, Brasilia, initiating the official relay, which will run 95 days up until the opening ceremony in Rio de Janeiro in August. The Olympic flame arrived from Switzerland and was lifted off by the plane by President of the Rio 2016 Local Organizing Committee. The flame travels in a safety lantern, which allows it to be carried on aircraft and in high winds. The same flame is used to light a series of other lanterns in case one should go out. It's transported to Congress for a ceremony headed by Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff. The torch will be raised by 12,000 people throughout 335 cities, crossing 20,000 kilometers of Brazilian territory. And finally, a quick look at the weather. It continues to be cloudy and dusty for the rest of tonight with southwesterly moderate winds. Tomorrow, a big drop in temperature is expected with a chance for rain showers accompanied by northwesterly moderate to fresh winds, raising dust in the Badia. In the Gulf of Aqaba, normal summer conditions prevail tomorrow with partly cloudy skies and northerly moderate winds changing to a southerly breeze in the afternoon, while the sea will be slightly high. Here now is a look at temperatures forecast for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. His Majesty the King receives a U.S. congressional delegation on a visit to the kingdom and discusses with them the situation in the region and the challenge of confronting terrorist groups. Syria's United Nations envoy Staffan de Mistura meets Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in Moscow to discuss a truce in Aleppo and announces a ceasefire may come to effect in the city within hours. And Leicester City's Premier League title dream became a reality when one of the greatest sporting fairy tales reached its conclusion, where chasing Tottenham Hotspur were held to a draw by Chelsea. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Ali Tuqan. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.